Aw, no, come on, you didn't just do that, Sportsnet. Come on, man. Alright, so I'm gonna make this video here because we have ourselves an article that I really wanted to read. Also, the fact that this article, I think, can give us so much more video material over the next few days that I think it is kind of funny to have this thing as an option to discuss. Thank you to those in the Moritz Seider draft reactions video who commented Adler Mannheim. I forgot to do this in yesterday's update, but forgive me. You're still getting your praise here. If you want a chance to be featured in the next Red Wings video, then hey, stick around to the end of this one. But today we're going over this article on Sportsnet. The title kind of says it all. 7 contenders to land Blue Jackets defenseman Seth Jones in a trade. This is written by Mike Johnston. And as you can very clearly tell from the title, it labels 7 different teams around the NHL and what assets they could give up to acquire Seth Jones. A top right-handed defenseman in the Columbus Blue Jacket system whose overall impact, positive or negative on the game, has been quite polarizing with the community over the past few weeks. I mean, even in this article, they embed a tweet from Evolving Wild talking about Seth Jones and his declining rates over the past few years in terms of xSPAR and expected goals against rates per 60 minutes. Yeah, it's an analytical decline for Seth Jones. But the writer immediately contradicts that in the next paragraph. They say, analytics be damned, Jones is the type of player that would immediately improve literally every team in the NHL if he were added to the roster. Okay. Like it or not, Seth Jones is seen by many as a good player. Fact is, Seth Jones was at some points throughout his career good enough that people would consider him for Norris votes, but you could really debate as to where he is on that scale today. Not really in that same boat, in my opinion, but he is still a capable right-handed defenseman playing in the NHL who could be a number 1, number 2 guy on some NHL teams. So this article goes over 7 teams that might have the assets to go ahead and do that in a trade after we learned that he does not want to re-sign in Columbus. The trade talk has been picking up a ton, and the Red Wings are indeed one of the teams that are mentioned in this piece. We'll read this article word for word as it describes Detroit. Oh boy, buckle up. It wouldn't be all too surprising if Steve Yzerman decided to make a splash this summer. He certainly has the draft capital to do it. Detroit currently has 12 picks in the 2021 draft, 7 of which are in the first 3 rounds, 2 firsts, 3 seconds, and 2 thirds. Dylan Larkin is the only notable player the Red Wings currently have signed beyond 2022. Ironically, if Columbus is seeking roster players over draft picks, Larkin would perhaps be Detroit's best trade chip. And you know what? I kind of have a problem with that. I kind of do. Mostly because when it comes to the way the Red Wings are assembled, if you're going out there and just saying, all right, if you want to get Seth Jones, he's a guy who's available in this trade market, all the Red Wings have to do, hey, it's Dylan Larkin. Take a look at that guy, Dylan Larkin. Let's see if we can go out there and trade Dylan Larkin for Seth Jones. The problem with that, in my opinion, is the notion that I don't really think the writer here acknowledges just how important Dylan Larkin is to the Red Wings. Like, you can make all the analytical comparisons and look at all the numbers, all of this and that, and talk about how good Dylan Larkin is compared to other top centers in the NHL. And sure, he might not be Connor McDavid, he might not be Nathan McKinnon, he might not be Matthews, but Dylan Larkin is the heart and soul and the captain of this team. I don't really think it's fair to go out there and just use Dylan Larkin as a trade chip of all things to acquire Seth Jones. It's the same kind of syndrome that Vancouver Canucks fans would exhibit whenever they would talk about Chris Tanev trade rumors back when he was on the Canucks. The biggest thing over the past few years was always, Chris Tanev to Toronto. Toronto needs a right-handed shutdown defenseman. They could use Chris Tanev, and it's gonna cost them this, that, or the other thing, XYZ, Timothy Liljegren, a first-round pick, JVR, Austin Matthews, whatever. It's kind of crazy because whenever we had those rumors of Chris Tanev to Toronto, Canucks fans would always overvalue Chris Tanev and the amount that he could fetch back. It would be a first-round pick and a prospect. It would be Timothy Liljegren and the second-round pick. It wouldn't just be Tanev for a second or Tanev for, a C-tier prospect. That's not enough for Tanev. Meanwhile, you had Toronto Maple Leafs fans going, what are you, nuts? What? A second in Liljegren for Tanev? No thank you. Chris Tanev is not worth a dime more than this prospect right here. And this was a very big problem for both of the fan bases over the past few seasons, especially post-2015, 2016-ish. And the reason for that was very exquisitely highlighted by Moroki on defense in one of the videos he made talking about the Tanev trade stuff, that Vancouver Canucks fans would never be satisfied with a Chris Tanev trade. Because the way Canucks fans and the Canucks themselves value Tanev is so much higher than how other teams would evaluate Tanev and assess his value that way. Tanev to Vancouver is worth so much more than Tanev to Toronto, and the same kind of principle applies here in my opinion, because Dylan Larkin to Detroit is like the literal beating heart. Okay, not literal, figurative. Should not say literal when the thing is not literal. Don't do that. The figurative beating heart of the Red Wings, it's Dylan Larkin. He's been here since 2015. He's done all of this. He's been through the downtimes. He's experienced playing with good players. He's gotten cultivated by that leadership of the guys that were here before. And he is the face of this team today. Now, sure, again, he's no Matthews, he's no McDavid. Other teams around the league, if you're saying, okay, we want to make a trade for Dylan Larkin, what would that cost us here? The way you evaluate Larkin, if you're not Detroit, is probably less than what Detroit values Larkin themselves, because he is just so important to this franchise, which is why if you say, okay, you want to get Seth Jones, you want to make a trade, you want to acquire a top right-handed defenseman, just trade Larkin for you. How about that? Just coming from the way the Red Wings, nevertheless Steve Yzerman would approach building a team like this, they wouldn't trade their captain. Especially considering what Dylan Larkin means. Especially in a trade like this for Seth Jones. Sure, if it's Larkin for McDavid, I guess you can say, okay, let's do it. But like, for Seth Jones, a right-handed defenseman coming in to potentially take away minutes from Moritz Seider, Filip Hronek's already there too. You already had the problem of Filip Hronek getting overplayed last year. If he plays behind Seth Jones and Seider, he might get no playing time next season. What happens to Troy Stecher too? Furthermore, what happens with the Red Wings center depth? You already have a fairly weak center core with Larkin on the team. If you trade away Larkin, you get Seth Jones in return. What are you, forced to spend money on an expensive, overpaid center now in free agency? It doesn't make sense. You could say, okay, maybe a few prospects gets it done or whatever, and that's cool. You can have your own hypothetical trade proposals for Seth Jones that involve the draft picks and involve the prospects. But just the mere fact that this article is treating Dylan Larkin like he could be the piece that makes the trade go through, sorry, that's not really how the Red Wings run their franchise, nor how the fan base would like to see it run. I'd be so surprised if they traded Dylan Larkin, period, just because we know what this guy means to the team and how much this fan base and the team themselves just love this guy to death. If you're gonna trade Larkin, it's gotta be for something more than Seth Jones, because the way he is valued is a lot more than other teams would be willing to value Larkin from their perspective. So, if you made it to the end of this video, comment down in the comment section below. Nick Lidstrom. Let's do Nick Lidstrom, because we're talking about Detroit captains, and, you know, Nick Lidstrom, Detroit captain. So, talk to me in the comments what you thought about this entire idea over here. Would you actually like to make a trade for Seth Jones? If so, what would you want to give up? Let me know your thoughts on that, as well as the overall Dylan Larkin thing. I hope you enjoyed this video. Josh Rolls 99. And bye.